I needed some professional help. Well, I've been told that before. Professional help on what happened with Tua and that situation. Once again, talking to a former NFL quarterback who said, if I was at a party and I got up and stumbled like that twice, would you let me drive home? And the answer is no. If I was a boxer and I stumbled twice in the ring and had to be helped up, would you let me continue to fight? And the answer is no. So Tua, the Dolphins sent us a note saying this morning he did not have a concussion. It's back and ankle injury, but it feels like, this was in the Bills game. And now the game against the Bengals, so that's the first concussion apparently that he's had. But the independent neurologist got fired. What did he do wrong? That's what I want to know, because eventually it's the team doctor who says, I'm going to sign off and send him back in. Is he disciplined? And what'd they do wrong? Tom Pelissero, he's supposed to have answers to this. The NFL reporter joins us now. So walk me through this so I can understand how we got to this point, Tom.
Well, it's a complicated question, Dan, because let's start with that game on last Sunday, a week ago, against the Bills. We all saw the same thing on TV, which is that Tua gets up, shakes his head, takes a few steps, kind of loses his balance, takes a couple more steps, then his teammates kind of grab him. I think that everyone watching is saying that's somebody who has a concussion. He goes into the locker room, I think it was in the second quarter, gets checked out, comes out in the third quarter, and the word comes quickly from the Dolphins that it was in fact a back injury and not a head injury that Tua had suffered, which is how he ends up getting cleared. Then obviously 4 days later, he's being checked every day. They're required under the protocols to check him the day after the game because he had a concussion check. They voluntarily do it just to monitor, just to make sure each day leading up to the Thursday night game. And then he suffers one of the most horrific looking concussions that we've seen in the modern NFL. So while that's going on, the NFLPA, which initiated an investigation, which they're allowed to do under the CBA, right after the Sunday incident, is beginning its investigation. The day after the Cincinnati game, they interview both the unaffiliated neurotrauma consultant and the Dolphins team physician who had been in on the concussion check. By Saturday, they had informed the UNC that they were terminating him. My understanding of why the unaffiliated neurologist was terminated was a combination of he did not understand his role as the UNC, did not understand what he was supposed to be doing, even though, again, this is an individual who under the CBA has to be a highly qualified surgeon or neurospecialist. They're approved by the NFL and NFLPA until they're not, but did not seem to understand that he did not work for the league, that he was there on behalf of the welfare of players, and then also that he became hostile in the interview process, which led the union to believe that he did not have players' best interests at heart, and therefore they exercised their right to terminate him. Now, I would also tell you, from what I understand, the league was not happy that they terminated him, and that word got out quickly after they informed the player reps that they had taken that step, which then leads you to the statement we had on Saturday night, joint from the NFL and NFLPA, saying they have agreed to address the gross motor instability, which is in essence the loophole that allowed them to say it was his back, not his head, and that gets him back onto the field. My understanding is they've already agreed on the parameters. They're working out final language. There's a process they have to go through to finalize it, but that's going to be changed here. But that statement also said the investigation's ongoing to this point. I'm paraphrasing here. There's been no wrongdoing found. In other words, no one at this point has ruled that Tua actually had a concussion last Sunday. And what the Dolphins told you this morning is the same thing that I've been told by many people involved here, which is based on all the medical information. He didn't have a concussion. That still leaves open the question, number one, how did the doctors come to the conclusion that Tua's back, not his head, caused the stumble? And if the concussion checklist, as they call it, was fully checked and no protocols were violated, then it becomes, I think, relatively obvious that the public appetite and the players' appetite for what players should go back onto the field, that this fell below the line.
But go back to what a former quarterback told me over the weekend. If you were at a party and you saw somebody get up and then stumble again, would you let that person drive?
Well, and that's precisely what they're trying to eliminate now with these updated protocols. What the union wants here, and it's going to be some form of this, is eliminating the medical judgment aspect of the gross motor instability. In other words, if you stumble, you are out of the game. And there's not somebody deciding, well, it was because of this. And remember, these are doctors. You go to your doctor, you don't just say, hey, doc, what's wrong with me? Like, you probably go, hey, my foot's hurting or my back's hurting. So the first thing they're doing is asking Tua what's going on. If he's saying it's my back, then they're taking that into consideration. Again, it's up to them to make the medical judgment. What this updated protocols will do now is say there is no judgment. You're simply coming off the field. But that also could potentially have unintended consequences, which from what Dr. Alan Sills, the NFL's chief medical officer, told us yesterday is part of the conversation now. I mean, think about a situation where Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs a couple of years ago got hit, gets up, he stumbles, he's got a knee injury, his knee buckles for a second, and he wobbles and gets back up. Well, now is Patrick Mahomes being pulled off the field in a playoff game? If, in fact, the language is that clear, the answer will be yes.
Now, when does this start, Tom?
When does pulling off players from the field, even if they don't have concussions?
Okay, but when does this new language get inserted here? Is this starting now?
The hope is it will be for week 5.
Okay.
That it will be in effect for week 5, though by putting out that statement on Saturday, that was intended, if people weren't already, to put everyone in the league on notice that when in doubt, get them out. I think there were about a dozen players yesterday who were announced as being evaluated for concussions. The only one I'm aware of who went back into the game was Justin Reed, the chief safety. Guys like Brian Hoyer, Tyrod Taylor did not return to the game. That's not abnormal. A lot of the players who get checked for concussions end up having concussions and being held out of the game. But I think it's fair to say everybody is on high alert right now, understanding the scrutiny here, and justifiably so, for exactly what happened with Tua.
Yeah, I still don't know why the doctor, did the independent neurologist do his job? Did the team doctor send him back in as well? I don't know if anybody has a problem with that, if he's facing disciplinary action. Plus, nobody's really addressed a back injury that led Tua to have that reaction, Tom. That's what I don't understand here. That appeared to be pretty serious to me.
Well, certainly, and he was on the injury report with back and ankle injuries during the course of the week. We don't know the entirety of what treatment was put into place there. What we do know is what Tua said, which was that he thought it happened on a quarterback sneak earlier, and then it locked up. Again, we know what our eyes tell us.
Yeah.
There's also 2 medical doctors who are supposed to be making these decisions, which I think that, if there's one other thing that comes out of this, I think it's from all the coaches I've talked to with other teams, people who know Mike McDaniel, people who don't, everyone to a man says, this is literally why the protocols exist, is to keep the coaches out of it. So the coach isn't making the judgment. So to the extent that Mike McDaniel should override the doctors on their medical judgment, that's a hard one. Coaches are taught to leave the medical evaluation to the doctors, take their information back. If the player can go in, then he can go back in. But, back to the point of what the process is with the team physician and the unaffiliated neurotrauma consultant, under the collective bargaining agreement, the team physician exclusively makes that decision. The unaffiliated neurotrauma consultant can ask questions to the player. They can offer information and opinions. It is the team physician who makes the call on both, does this player have a concussion and can he return to play? Dr. Alan Sills said he's not aware of any situation that came down to a coin flip, and they educate everyone to, if there's 2 differing opinions, to take the more conservative opinion and remove the player, which tells you in this case, both doctors agreed that Tua should be able to go back into the game, but it is ultimately the team physician's responsibility under the CBA.
Talking to Tom Pelissero, the NFL Network insider. By the way, Giants-Packers live on NFL Network Sunday at 9:30 a.m. Eastern from London. Is there any protocol for AFib with J.J. Watt getting his heart shocked back into rhythm here?
That's something that we've seen. Usually there's a handful of players through the combine process every year who get flagged for irregular heartbeats. Yeah. AFib is not, I'm not in any way, it's not my heart. So I'm never going to call it a minor injury just because I don't have it. But it is something that's relatively common, and they're able to do something with it. J.J. Watt going and playing a game 3 days later. Obviously, again, he and the medical doctors made the decision that was going to be something that was safe for him to do. So it's not completely unprecedented. I would certainly think that's something that they're going to monitor going forward. But he went out and played like J.J. Watt and had a pretty big tip ball there late in the game.
We brought this up in the first hour. Having a third-string quarterback on the sidelines, without taking a roster spot, can you have, I mean, is that a big deal? I know you get to add 2 practice players, so you're up to 55, but can you have like an extra goalie in hockey, just something in case? So instead, Saquon Barkley is going to be your third string quarterback here.
Well, and they had that for years. I think that went away. I don't know off the top of my head, but I want to say around 2008 or so that they eliminated that rule. You used to have the third quarterback dress as the 46th man, and the change that they made to the roster rules was now you just get 46. What happened was a lot of teams started keeping up an extra linebacker or DB or something for special teams, and so it's really only in cases where a player comes into a game with an injury right now that you see the third quarterback active on game day. But we've seen, several situations here, and I certainly think that with the updated concussion protocol, that has to factor into people's thinking here, which is that there's a higher percentage chance that a player could be taken off the field even if they don't have a concussion for a precaution. You may see more teams taking that into evaluation, similar to how for a long time a lot of teams only carried 2 quarterbacks. Then COVID hit, everybody started having a third quarterback. Then COVID also changed the roster rules. You could have veterans on your practice squad. You can elevate those players. I would think that's something that teams are going to have to address here. Everybody's got their emergency quarterback and then the emergency quarterback. Like I thought that was one of the interesting parts of the Patriots game yesterday was the reporters who cover the team going, well, Jacoby Myers is the emergency 4th quarterback, but he's inactive. We don't know who the 5th quarterback is, but you're one play away from that coming into play. At least Bailey Zappi went out and for a rookie from Western Kentucky, he chucked it around pretty good.
Most importantly, I'll save this for last, and it's far more serious than the other things. DK Metcalf going to be listed on the injury list for being carted off with that whatever tragic injury that he had in the game.
I will say this for DK Metcalf, and this is always why I always hesitate to tweet or retweet when I see a guy on the cart who didn't have an obvious injury, because there are different places. They've encouraged players in recent years to not go to the bathroom on the sideline, not to just have the 2 guys with towels and you're under the Gatorade coolers relieving yourself. It is a hike in Ford Field because you got to go around the field, you got to go up the tunnel, and then it's like the second area up there. It's a tough place. When nature calls, there's like one little bathroom, and I know this because every game it's one of the big things, Dan, that I'm always conscientious of when I'm doing pregame hits on NFL Network, which is how far am I? Where is it? What's the situation? I can tell you it's a 2-stall bathroom that's accessible off the field. If not, you got to go all the way up and into the locker room. So it's a smart move by DK. He got himself back a little quicker.
That's great reporting right there. Why doesn't NFL Network do a story on best and worst bathroom situation and then talk to players about what that's like to try to get, man, this has got Sports Emmy written all over it. Might as well hand it to you here, Tom.
Here's what I'm going to do, Dan. I'm going to make a TikTok just for you. I know you're big on TikTok.
Oh, yeah.
I will make it. I will start filming the bathrooms for the rest of the year, and we'll see if we can come to a conclusion by the end of this thing.
Yes, and I would like diagrams. I would like to have explanations here. But
you test me. It's like George Costanza in New York City. I can tell you the best restroom that the media is allowed to use in every stadium in the NFL, top of my head.
I like that. Tom, thanks for joining us as always.
Anytime, Dan.
Tom Pelissero. He works for the NFL Network. He's an insider. And his newest assignment is, I got to find out about the bathroom situation.